Chair has no questions at this time. Dr. Burgess, you're recognized for any questions you may care to address the panel.
Well, thank you. President Biden, when he was running for office, suggested that there's no reason why the United States could not take in an additional 2 million people a year in our system. Well, I think we've proved the point that, well, he doubled the number. And guess what? We've got a real problem. We got a real problem with a lot of our smaller school districts, I know, in Texas. The numbers of English as second language kids, the number of kids who are admitted behind grade level, it's overwhelming, these small school districts. So while I welcome this legislation today, I think it's timely, it's necessary. I will just tell you, I have been frustrated by Secretary Becerra, by Secretary Mayorkas, when you ask them, when they come into committee to give the hearings on the budget, on what they're projecting, and you ask them, what are you doing to prepare small communities, small school districts for what is headed their way? That the president said he wanted to bring their way. He said he wanted 2 million, he got 4. How in the world are you preparing these communities and these school districts for what is headed their way? Doesn't have much to do with the bill we've got in front of us today. I think the bill's a good idea. We should prohibit this activity. But the larger issue is, what are we doing to our smaller school districts and overwhelming them with a problem that should be controlled by the federal government at the border? And I'll be happy to hear from either of you on that.
Well, I will make just one quick observation. When I was first elected to Congress, I met with the superintendent of our largest county and largest school district in my district, and he told me that for several years, the only growth that they were having in the number of children coming into the schools was with children who had English as a second language. And so almost all the growth occurring, all the cost were coming from migrant children. And that's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. And it's particularly gotten really bad under the Biden administration. We all know that President Biden campaigned on an open border. And as you say, he's been, in one case, more successful than he wanted to be by doubling the number of people who've come in illegally. It's wrong. A border is important to have for any country. None of us could go to another country anywhere without permission from that country to come in. It just won't happen. And so we're not operating the way a country should be operating, which is with a border. My father's parents came here in the early 1900s. They came through Ellis Island. They came through legally. My mother's ancestors have been here since the 1700s. I'm a granddaughter of migrants on my father's side, and so I'm a believer in migration. We admit over 1 million people each year legally. I've talked to many of those people. They pay a lot of money. They spend a lot of time. Sometimes it takes 15, 20 years for them to go through the process. That's the way it ought to be. We're the greatest country in the world. People want to come here. I understand that. I understand they're human beings, Mr. McGovern, and I understand why they would want to come here. But to maintain this as the greatest country in the world, we have to follow the rules. If we let our rules go, if we become an anarchy like some of these other countries, then we won't be the place people want to come or the place people want to grow up in. So thank you very much for letting me preach that little sermon. Thank you.
Well, I'd just say that if you want to talk immigration policy, you need to talk to people in Homeland Security and Judiciary Committee. I know that schools have, talking about the bill before, schools are traditionally used in emergencies, hurricanes and whatnot without any fanfare. Taking money away from the school districts, as this bill does, cannot be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.